Well, good morning and welcome to our Monday morning thought for today. This week we're looking at Mark's Gospel, chapter 5, verses 21 to 43. It's the passage you can see at the bottom of the screen. And if you're not aware of the story of Jairus' daughter, or you missed the sermon yesterday morning, I would take time, if I were you, just to familiarise yourself with it so you'll know what we're talking about this week. Jesus has been interrupted on his journey to Jairus' house to see his daughter, because of this woman who reached out and touched him and received healing because of her faith. Now we pick up the story really where news comes to Jairus. Now Jairus, I'm sure, was standing there watching Jesus having this conversation with this woman, and part of him must have been thinking, can we not hurry this along? Can we not get a move on, please? My daughter is sick at home. I really need you to come and heal her. That's what I came and asked you for. And yet we know that it was almost too late anyway, because these men come from Jairus' house. Let me read the verse for you. It's verse 35. While he was still speaking, that's while Jesus was still speaking, there came from the ruler's house some who said, your daughter's dead. Why trouble the teacher any further? So in a sense, from the time Jairus has left the house to go to find Jesus, now we don't know how far the house was away, and the time that was taken up talking to this woman who had the bleed, in this bracket of time, obviously Jairus' daughter deteriorates very quickly, so much so that she passes on. And the problem is that Jesus wasn't there. Jesus wasn't there to prevent her from dying. Therefore, the mourners are called, and someone has come up with a good idea. Look, you better go and find Jairus, tell him that his daughter's died, tell him not to bother with Jesus anymore, because the horse is bolted. There's no point in going down that route. It's over and done with. And it made me think when I was reading through this and preparing for yesterday, this whole idea of death is so final. Death is so final that when death happens, that's the end of anything that can be done about anything. Death is like the full stop. Death is beyond which nothing exists, no possibility exists, and there is no hope beyond that. Now, very few of us have ever seen somebody being raised from the dead, and yet we have accounts in God's word of people who were raised from the dead. And we could list those if we wanted to. None less than Jesus himself on Easter Sunday morning when he came back from the dead. But the problem with us is for human beings, death is the ceiling. Death is as far as our faith will let us go sometimes. We believe anything can happen, possibly right up to the point when life leaves. And at that point, some of us are tempted to go, well, you know what? This Jesus thing is just not going to work out. I don't know why I bothered believing. I don't know why I went down this route. I don't know why I bothered praying. And I've heard other people say it. And part of me, I suppose, every so often is tempted to think about, why did we bother praying? What was that about when God had already decided that he was going to take that person to himself? And the problem is when we think like that, we're in an error. We're thinking badly. We're not thinking correctly. Our problem is we're letting our human instincts tell us that, well, death has happened, therefore Jesus wasn't able to do anything. God didn't answer my prayer, therefore I'm going to turn my back. I'm not going to bother the teacher any longer. And we can't do that. Sometimes we can only see a fraction of the picture. Sometimes we can only get to see a bracketed area within the full expanse of what's actually going on. And God may be doing something and have purposes beyond which we can't fully understand. Now, the problem is so often we wrestle with death. We wrestle with a tragedy like that. And I know most likely some of you watching this have experienced such tragedy. But at times like that, it's not the right time to say, I'm not going to bother Jesus anymore. I'm going to forget about him. I'm going to turn my back on him. I'm going to distract myself in a different way. It's at those moments that we need to turn to Jesus and say, I don't understand. I don't know why you let this happen. I don't know what your purposes are. I don't know what you're thinking. I don't understand what's going on. Please help me understand. And sometimes it's only maybe years later we get a picture of something that makes sense as to why we had to go through that tragedy or that heartbreak at the time. Sometimes we might never get the answer to it, but that time is not the right time to turn our back and not to trouble the teacher any further. It's at that time we need to cling on to Jesus, because he is the only one who understands what's happened. And as we'll think about, I think it's probably Friday morning, we serve a Lord who understands our needs far greater than anyone else. And so I want to encourage you this morning, whatever circumstances you've gone through in life, however tough life has been, however remote sometimes God has maybe seemed, don't ever turn your back on him. Don't close that door. Don't walk away and say, I'm not going to bother Jesus anymore because it's too late. But at those moments, trust him, cling to him, hope that he has a plan and a purpose which he will get glory from and which you will understand. It's very tough. I know it's very tough, but I want to encourage you this morning. Don't give up on Jesus. Even when it looks like you've hit the ceiling of your faith, don't give up on Jesus. He's still there and he still understands. I hope this has helped you in some way today. Maybe you're not going through that at the moment, but I would encourage you to keep this and hold on to it, because not one of us knows what's around the corner. It's Monday morning. Forgive me if I've dragged you down on a Monday morning. Have a good day, and God willing, you'll come back and listen again tomorrow. See you then.